It was an ordinary Tuesday, the kind of day that could easily fade into the background of memory. The streets were busy with the usual rush of people trying to get to work, to school, to wherever life was pushing them. The sky hung in a dull gray over the city, offering no hint of sunshine or inspiration. It was one of those mornings when everything felt slightly muted, as though the world itself was tired. Maya had just missed her bus. Standing on the sidewalk, her hands buried in the pockets of her worn jacket, she stared at the tail lights of the bus as it pulled away, a symbol of her failure to keep up. She sighed heavily and turned back toward the street. The world around her seemed indifferent. People rushed by, heads down, absorbed in their own lives. Her heart ached with a deep, gnawing loneliness, a feeling that seemed to grow stronger as the years passed. She wasn't used to being surrounded by crowds but still feeling so completely invisible. She'd lost her job 2 months ago, an office position in a small firm where she'd been employed for 5 years. Losing it had shaken her in ways she hadn't expected. Without a steady paycheck, her savings had quickly dwindled, and now she was finding it harder and harder to keep up with her bills. Each day felt like a struggle to simply stay afloat, to keep her head above water in a sea of problems she could no longer ignore. After the bus passed, Maya pulled her phone out of her bag. A message from her mom appeared on the screen. "Have you heard back from any of those interviews? Let me know if you need help with anything, sweetheart." Maya closed the message without responding. She didn't want to disappoint her mom by admitting that the interviews hadn't gone well, or worse, that she hadn't heard back from a single one. She knew that the weight of her failures was something her mom would never understand. Her mother was the kind of woman who always had a smile on her face, who always made sure to have the right words at the right time. Maya, on the other hand, felt as though the world had slipped away from her, leaving her in the dark. She turned down a side street, hoping to take a quieter path and escape the throngs of people rushing around her. It was a longer walk, but maybe the solitude would ease the sting of the morning's disappointment. As she walked, her thoughts began to wander, each one more dismal than the last. She thought about her childhood, about the dreams she used to have of becoming a writer or an artist, and how those dreams had slowly faded as reality set in. She thought about how, at this point, the best she could hope for was a low-paying job that wouldn't leave her destitute. Her foot caught on a loose stone, and she stumbled, the bag on her shoulder shifting uncomfortably. As she tried to regain her balance, her heart gave a sharp lurch. Her wallet had fallen out of her bag. She bent down quickly to pick it up, only to see it being snatched by a man passing by. "Hey," she called out, a mixture of frustration and panic rising in her chest. The man didn't stop. Instead, he kept walking briskly, not even sparing her a glance. Maya stood frozen for a moment, stunned. She didn't have much money left, but her ID, credit cards, and other important documents were in that wallet. It felt as though something had been taken from her that went beyond material loss. It felt like a final blow to the fragile bit of hope she had left. She wasn't sure what came over her in that moment, but something clicked inside of her, and she broke into a run, ignoring the ache in her legs and the pounding of her heart. She couldn't let this man get away with it. She followed him down the street, through the winding alleys and past street vendors who gave her curious glances as she dashed by. She had no idea where he was going, but all that mattered was getting her wallet back. The man slowed as he turned a corner into an even quieter alley. Maya stopped for a moment, catching her breath, before she slowly crept forward. She needed to be careful. She couldn't afford to make a scene. Just as she rounded the corner, she saw him. He was leaning against a brick wall, his back turned to her, rummaging through the contents of her wallet. Maya's heart skipped a beat. She needed to act. "Give it back," she said, her voice shaking. The man whipped around in surprise. His eyes narrowed as he saw her standing there, her expression a mix of determination and desperation. He stood up slowly, his hand still gripping the wallet, and looked her over as if weighing his options. "I don't have time for this," he muttered, turning away as though he were about to walk off again. But this time, Maya stepped forward, her legs trembling but her resolve solid. "You can't just take someone's wallet and walk away," she said, her voice more forceful this time. "It's not right." The man's face twisted into a sneer. "Yeah? And what are you gonna do about it?" Maya felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She wasn't physically strong, not like the man in front of her. But something inside of her refused to back down. "Please," she said, the word coming out softer now, almost pleading. "It's all I have left. It's not just money, it's everything I have. Please." For a long moment, there was silence between them. The man looked at her, then at the wallet, and then back at her face. Maya wasn't sure what he saw there, whether it was pity, anger, or something else entirely. But something shifted. His gaze softened, just a little. He let out a low sigh. "Fine," he said, tossing the wallet back toward her. "Don't make a big deal out of it." Maya caught the wallet with shaking hands, her heart still racing in her chest. She wanted to say something, but words failed her. Instead, she simply stood there, staring at the man, trying to process what had just happened. "Thank you," she finally managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. The man didn't respond. He didn't say anything else, just turned and walked away, disappearing into the maze of city streets. Maya stood there for a long time, the wallet clutched tightly in her hands. It felt like the world had just shifted, like a small part of the darkness that had been pressing down on her had finally lifted. As she turned to leave the alley, she realized something. The stranger, the man who had stolen her wallet, had given it back without a second thought. In that brief, quiet exchange, something unspoken had passed between them. He hadn't walked away when he could have. He hadn't ignored her, as so many others had. And in doing so, he had reminded her of a truth she had almost forgotten, that sometimes, kindness comes in unexpected forms, from people you least expect. Maya walked home that afternoon with her wallet safely tucked back into her bag, her thoughts filled with a strange sense of peace. The city, once so indifferent, seemed a little less harsh. People still rushed past her, still absorbed in their own lives, but for the first time in a long while, Maya didn't feel so invisible. She had learned something that day. It wasn't about the money, or the wallet, or the stranger who had returned it. It was about the choice he made. He could have walked away, like everyone else. But he didn't. He stood there, for just a moment, and gave her what she needed most, someone who didn't walk away. And that made all the difference.